America, they will take these seats, make them solid Republican seats, and potentially create a situation where they can hold on to the Congress of the United States, keep control of the Congress of the United States, even though the American people don't want them there. That, as I said at the start, is the end of representative democracy, and it is also the end, or at least potentially the end, at least for this time, if we don't push back, if we don't, beat this thing, of a system of checks and balances. Because the genius of the system of checks and balances isn't that Congress checks and balances at any moment. It is that if we are unsatisfied with a president and what he is doing, in the midst of his or her term, we can elect a new Congress that checks and balances that president. We can put a new team on the field. If we, the people, are losing, we can put a team on the field that will, rush that line on our behalf. And if we lose that, then we lose the ability to check and balance the president of the United States.
Wow. And that is so important. Everybody, think about this. When you go to vote because you believe you got a chance of electing somebody who represents your interests. And what they do when they do this gerrymandering redistricting, they're purposefully drawing lines where only members of one party can be elected. It's designed to squash your vote, to take away your choice. So that's why this is so important, because in Texas, they already redistricted once, but now they're doing it again because Trump wants his own House of Representatives, and he knows he's going to lose it because of the American people are through with his agenda. So it's so important for us to look at this. One thing I did want to make sure everybody knows, there's a Supreme Court case called Rucho versus Common Cause 2019, where basically the Supreme Court said we are hands off when it comes to partisan gerrymandering, that no district court judge, no federal judge should be involved in any challenges to partisan redistricting. That does not mean that we can't use the Voting Rights Act to challenge racial redistricting, but recently, as we saw last year in the case out of South Carolina, the Supreme Court is conflating, partisan gerrymandering with racial gerrymandering and making all racial gerrymandering partisan gerrymandering. So it's a very dangerous moment we're in, people. And that's why we approach the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. John, what does this mean? I mean, we're at the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act on this Wednesday, the August 6th. Yeah. What does this mean?
Well, I guess we don't get to just sit at the table and pass around pieces of cake, right? It sounds like we're going to have to be working that day, not just celebrate. What an incredible juxtaposition that the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act would come, literally, at this point when effectively Texas is trying to gut the Voting Rights Act, is seeking to gut it. And this is a really important thing to understand here. You're exactly, Barbara, you're the genius of this stuff, right?
No.
You and Derek are, you're the people that at the heart of this, what we're talking about. And you see, this is the thing. People I know and that fought very, very hard in the courts for a long time. They respected the courts. They said, hey, let's try and address partisan gerrymandering. Let's try and create fair maps and fair districts where people can have really honest election choices. The Supreme Court stood down and said, we're standing to the sidelines. We're not going to intervene on behalf of democracy. Now, that in itself is a choice. The Supreme Court of the United States has chosen not to seek to defend and expand democracy. That's a big deal in and of itself. But the second thing was that when they narrowed the places where we could step up and say, hey, these aren't fair elections, these aren't fair maps, we were left with one protection. at least in much of the country, and that's the Voting Rights Act, especially in a state like Texas. In a number of these other states, we had the Voting Rights Act, and the Voting Rights Act has done so many important things to expand democracy, to expand participation, to expand representation. It has created an opening for many of the greatest leaders in our Congress. I mean, these are folks who've come up there and led on the full range of issues, from economic and racial and social justice to the environment and peace. And what they are saying now in Texas is, we can mess with this map. We can shred this map in a way that clearly violates the Voting Rights Act. And then they are going to, and then what they will do is they will go to the Supreme Court, their Supreme Court, that's been so aligned with them on so many issues, and they will try to get that Supreme Court to accept what they have done. If Texas does what it's to do, and if that is accepted by the Supreme Court, and if we hold elections on these new maps in Texas, this will not stop in Texas. It will spread across the South. It will spread across the Southwest. It will go wherever Voting Rights Act protections have been established and have been used to create some measure of fairness and representation. And we will enter into a moment where even if California, New York, and other states may redraw some maps and try and offset what happens in Texas or someplace else, that basic protection of the Voting Rights Act could potentially be lost.
Wow.
I'll tell you, we aren't just talking about the 2026 election and, all these redistricting battles and gerrymandering battles and partisan maps and things like that. We are talking about a circumstance where the one backstop we've had, the one, protection that has survived even in the most difficult of moments, could be taken away from us. This is no small fight. This is the fight. And 60 years on from Lyndon Johnson and Reverend King and A. Philip Randolph and a young John Conyers and so many other folks who were there, 60 years on, we face the genuine risk that promise, but also that reality, could be, shredded into something that, Barbara, I don't want to say this to you, but your life's work could be dramatically undermined.
Well, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to have some good trouble, right, Daryl? Right, Daryl? We're going to do good trouble. That's why I'm so happy to see, that those 1,700 events that happened on July 17th that TJC helped to organize, and we think almost 2 million people got in the streets on a Thursday night, to make sure that their voices were heard for this democracy. We're not about to stop, Daryl. And I know, John, you got to leave soon, but go ahead, Daryl.
I want to hear Daryl.
Yeah. No, I wanted Ron to just expand a little bit, John, before you leave. Representative Reynolds, could you just expand a little bit for our audience with regards to what's happening in Texas? Because, as Barbara has mentioned, the redistricting generally occurs every 10 years following the census. This one is called in the middle of what's called a special session. And as I understand it, the special session was supposed to be based on the flooding that occurred in Texas with the emergency alert system that failed. And now we're in the middle of a redistricting fight. Can you share with our audience how we got to the point of where we are now?
Absolutely, Daryl. And if I could just very quickly, I appreciate John and certainly Barbara talking about the legal victory that we had to get many of the voting rights that we have today. But I want people to be reminded that before that legal victory, there were people who put it all on the line. They literally gave their life, but they risked it all by, freedom rides and marching and protesting. And we were there for the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday that helped lead to this effort where a Texas president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, because of all the good trouble, pushed and ultimately signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So I know I stand on their shoulders. And Daryl, we know right now, as we enter this not so special session, it was supposed to be about relief for those, sadly, all the lives that were lost. Over 100 Texans, near 200 people lost their lives, including over 30 children that were at a camp in Camp Mystic. This was so tragic.
Yeah. And
we were supposed to be doing relief efforts in terms of legislatively how that we can, because this could have been prevented. There was so many times where Governor Abbott denied the kind of alarm system that would have been in place to alert those people in that area of a disaster so that they could have time to evacuate. But he denied it. The county couldn't afford the system that cost $1 million. We have a record surplus, and there would have been nothing for Governor Abbott. There was federal funding from President Biden that could have been used. President Obama had federal funding that could have been used. So we're seeing so many missed opportunities, but this special session was supposed to put those things into place so that we could make sure it didn't happen in the future. But no, Governor Abbott, bending the knee to President Trump, decides that this special session is going to be about redistricting under the guise of relief efforts. But there's been very little time devoted to relief efforts. All the oxygen, all the energy has been devoted towards this. And so that's why we took a stand. And I want you to know, everyone, Governor Abbott, through his executive power, didn't need a special session to do that. He could have did that under the executive order, through executive order, but he chose not to. So we in addition to this, there's other red meat on the call of the special session, more assaults on the LGBTQ, more anti-DEI, more anti-abortion. You name it. It's just a red meat list. You go look at Project 2025, they see, we didn't get this done during a regular session, so we're going to do it on a special session. So, it's a sham. It's a sham of a special session. This is, unfortunate, not what most Texans care about. They want to have relief, like I said, for CUR. They want to have Medicaid, health care, because we have the highest number of uninsured. Black women lead the nation in Texas in maternal deaths. Texas still has a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. This is, I could go on, but those are the things that the kitchen table things that most Texans care about. They want common sense gun reform legislation. None of those things are on the call of the special session. So I'm happy to be a good troublemaker with my colleagues. And I appreciate you all for fighting the good fight. Transformative Justice Coalition, you guys are amazing. Doing the Lord's work on the front line. I hope people understand that you all have led these fights, these rallies, to raise the awareness, to engage people, to register voters, because we're up on a critical midterm election. So, yes, we are holding out, but ultimately it's going to be up to the voters to vote out Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Patrick, vote out these MAGA extremists in Congress so that we can get a Democrat majority and someone who will listen to the will of the American people and not cater to the billionaires like this big, ugly bill that was passed. And this has been one of the worst Congresses I've ever seen with the assault on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I hate when people just say DEI because it doesn't stand for what it is. They're assaulting black and brown folks. These attacks on black and brown people and immigrants through these ICE raids, through Muslims, it is just shameful. And I don't know how silence is complicity. And so I want people to be on the right side of history and call it out, speak truth to power, do whatever we can to stand up against Trump and all of these MAGA folks that are beholden to him. They're very afraid for some reason. They're cowards to stand up to him, even though he's leading this country down the toilet with these tariffs and so many other bad policies. And I don't understand when they're going to say enough.
All right.
Well, they're going to say enough, my friend. they're going to say enough. The question is whether they're going to be drawn into districts that will allow them to be heard or not.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. That's the heart of the matter, and that's why I have to leave. I love